Welcome to this Arnall-Culliford knitwear tutorial. This is part of our Year of Techniques, 12 patterns to help you to upgrade your knitting skills. Today's tutorial is going to show you how to do an Afterthought heel, but this is the exact same technique that is used for Afterthought thumbs on mittens and gloves as well. So Afterthought heels are really good for yarns that have a gradient in them because it allows you to add a heel later without interrupting the flow of the colours in the yarn. They also just fit slightly differently from heel flap heels, and so they're worth giving a try if you haven't before. They're a really nice technique. So we've been working this sock from the toe up, and we've decided it's time to add the heel. So what you need to do first of all is to add some waste yarn into the fabric so that later on you can go back and remove it and add the heel at that point. I tend to use a smooth mercerized cotton for my waste yarn because it's easy to remove later and it doesn't get stuck to the stitches. So I'm just going to knit across my heel stitches with the waste yarn. Very straightforward. I'm just going to demonstrate this on half of what I would normally use for the heel, but it'll be plenty to give you the idea. So I'm working across one needle's worth of stitches. Obviously your pattern will tell you how many stitches to knit onto waste yarn. So there's my waste yarn. I've snipped the ends. Later I can loosely tie them together so that it doesn't come out of the fabric. And then you return to the beginning of those heel stitches, or thumb stitches if you're doing a mitten, and you work over them in your main yarn. Now obviously on double pointed needles it's really easy because you can just go back to the beginning of the needle. If you're using a circular needle or magic loop, then you might need to slip the stitches back to where you started with the waste yarn, but if you do that it is literally just slipping them back without twisting them so that you're ready to work across the heel or thumb stitches again. So now we go along with the main yarn over the top. This is also a great way to work a heel if you've only got a fixed amount of sock yarn available, because it allows you to possibly use a contrast yarn for the heel at the end, because you can carry on knitting the whole of the sock in the main yarn till it's gone, and then you can go back and do a contrast heel if you want to. So now I've worked across the stitches again with the main yarn. You can see we've got the waste yarn stitches in the fabric, and we'll return to them later to add the heel. Once you've finished knitting the leg of your sock and you've cast off the cuff, you'll then return to these waste yarn stitches that we have and carefully pick up stitches around, remove the waste yarn, and then you'll be ready to knit your heel into your sock. So I'm using a slightly smaller size of needle because it makes it easier to get in and pick up the stitches, and we're going to work across the row picking up the right hand leg of each V-shaped stitch. So here's a V-shaped waste yarn stitch, and we're going to pick up the right hand leg of the stitch below it. I've started in the middle of the row because sometimes the stitches at the edges are slightly harder rather to spot where to pick up, so I'm going to start from the middle and work outwards all the way along to the end, making sure I've caught the very edge stitches for the last few. And if in doubt, pick up an extra one at the end. Better to have an extra stitch than that you don't need than to be missing one. And then I'm going to work from the middle back in the other direction, again picking up that right hand leg each time. And again at the far end, if in doubt, pick up another stitch just to be on the safe side. So I've now picked up all the stitches underneath the waist yarn. I'm now going to do the other side, and you do that simply by turning around and doing exactly the same thing. So we're looking at the V of the stitch and picking up the right hand leg, and again I'm starting in the middle and working my way out. Right, now that we've hopefully safely got all of our stitches on our needles, we can start to pull out the waist yarn. As you're pulling it out, obviously just check that all the stitches are carefully caught on the needles and none of them are hanging in the wind. Everything's perfectly happy there. And you just carry on along the row, taking that waist yarn out. You might find it helps to trim the end every so often so that you're not pulling quite so much through all the stitches. Turn it off, it'll just speed things up a bit. Oops. If you pull the needles apart slightly, you can see what you're doing a bit more clearly. Trim that off again. Obviously being careful not to slice through your sock. That would be a disaster. You can also snip through the yarn just to remove the stitches, but I do sometimes worry that I would mistakenly snip through a stitch that wasn't meant to be cutting, so I like pulling it out with a needle instead. And all gone. So now we just look around the needles and make sure everything's as it should be. And then all you do is join in your heel yarn and knit across the needle. And you can continue then working in the round, picking up a stitch or two at each corner as your pattern directs you. And that allows you to add a heel into your sock. It's exactly the same method as you would use to add a thumb into a mitten or a pair of gloves. And it just allows you to knit in a different direction onto the rest of the project at the end. I hope you've enjoyed seeing how to add an afterthought heel or thumb to your knitting. If you'd like to know more about a year of techniques, do visit our website acknitwear.co.uk, and why not try something new today? Thanks for watching.